Welcome in, April Mama. Good to see you again, my friend. I apologize for not being able to go live last night for the regular Soul Group Live. I still need to get a better alternative for internet whenever I'm traveling. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the Soul Group meeting. Some of the state parks that I travel to throughout the week, there is a decent phone connection to where I can use the data to stream a live. All of them have Wi-Fi, but since the Biden administration passed the TikTok law, basically, any federal or state institution such as the state park system, they ban access to TikTok through any of their government devices, including their Wi-Fi routers. So if you go to a state park and you try to access TikTok on their Wi-Fi, it will not allow you to. So whenever I'm away from home and I'm traveling, as I was yesterday, it makes it very difficult for me to be able to do it live. So again, I apologize to everybody for not being able to hold the Soul Group Live yesterday at the regular scheduled time, but that's why. That's what was going on. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see you, Peter, Tweety. Welcome in, everybody. This is going to be a shorter than usual live tonight. I've got some things going on that need to be attended to, but I've got an important topic to discuss with everybody, and I want to make sure that certain people are in here before we really get started with that. Hello, Ayana. Welcome back, my friend. Let me take a gander at who all's in here real quick. I hope everybody's doing well. Okay, I'm going to give a few more minutes to make sure that we get everybody in here before I really get going with the topic. For anybody, hey Dory, thank you for stopping back in, my friend. Thank you for that, Ion. I appreciate you. Anybody who's not in the Telegram group or who has not seen it, I posted a link to a YouTube. It's not actually a video, it is a live page announcing the collaboration that I'm going to be doing with Moonlight Intuitive on YouTube. She has several different channels on YouTube. The main one, I think, is Moonlight Intuitive, and then there's Aquarius and Company and Scorpio and Company. But I'm going to be doing an interview with her there live June 1st on YouTube. That's where it will stream. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation about Earth changes and how that relates to the age of Aquarius and this grand cycle that we're in. So if any of you guys are interested in those topics, I hope to see you there. Welcome back, Laura. For those of you guys that have been here for a long time, and I think at this point that's pretty much everyone that's in here, you've heard me talk about those topics for a while, but I've been working behind the scenes to put all of those pieces of the puzzle together that we've been discussing, some of us, for 3 years now. And I want to put them together into a cohesive story in a way that is intelligible, that makes sense, that presents all of the scientific evidence alongside of the prophecy and alongside the reality in the physical world of what we're seeing unfold today, and then talk about the implications of that with where we're at and how that how that fits in with the age of Aquarius and Christ consciousness. So it's going to be a fantastic live. I hope to see you guys there. And it's going to be on June 1st on YouTube. There's plenty of notice if you guys want to be there and take part of that. Hello, Arlena. Welcome in, my friend. Okay, let me share this out to somebody real quick. Bear with me, guys. Okay, there we go. Okay, so since this live is going to have to be shorter than it usually is, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this topic. The main thing that I want to discuss with you guys is, in my opinion, this is all important with where we're at as a collective in this grand cycle that we discuss all the time with the entrance of the age of Aquarius. I think this is perhaps one of, if not the most important single aspect of the shift, of the closing of the old age and the beginning of the new age, as well as us making the leap from the third dimension into 5D consciousness, into Christ consciousness. So this is a really big topic, and I'm only going to scratch the surface on it tonight. But I think it's important to go ahead and do that. The topic that I really want to discuss with everybody is our ability as co-creators to become the gardeners of the garden that is our mind, to weed out the negative thoughts, to choose not to water the weeds, and to nurture and nourish the healthy plant, the weeds, and to nurture and nourish the healthy plants that we want to grow. I think that is a very, very good analogy for being a conscious co-creator, because everybody who's any part of the New Age community, and many who are not, are aware that our thoughts create our reality, right? That is not a new concept. It's not even a new age concept. It is a concept that is as old as humanity is, and it is something that has been long forgotten, and humanity is remembering that we are having a recollection of that universal truth, that our thoughts create our reality, right? The main reason why I say this is such an important topic is because I, for one, believe that there are entities, let's say, that exist in our world, in the third dimensional reality, who don't suffer from amnesia, who know all too well what this cycle entails, what's going to happen, what's coming down the pike. They know what to expect. And unlike the vast majority of the collective, they are very skilled at creating, at harnessing the creative potential of the collective consciousness. And I believe because they're aware of all of these things, they are attempting to sway the collective in certain directions. The primary avenue for steering the collective by these entities, which that can mean any number of things, is through use of fear. And the reason that that is so powerful and that it works so well is that when we buy into fear, when we accept that those thoughts, fearful thoughts, negative thoughts, low vibrational thoughts, the moment that we entertain them, A thought will pop into our mind of general doom and gloom, whatever it is. And then when we give it our attention, we are feeding it, because that attention is our energy, and we are feeding it full of life, full of our energy. And what happens whenever you feed and nurture something? It grows, right? And so that fear continues to grow, and it continues to build and grow until eventually we step onto this downward spiral, escalating further and further into fear and despair, which lowers our frequency resonance of our energy field. It lowers our vibration. Hello, Aaron. I'm glad you're here, my friend. Whenever that happens, we are pulled out of our power. We are pulled out of our natural ability to co-create. Fear is the mind killer. And that is a really important and powerful concept for everyone to grasp, in my opinion. It's paramount, because these changes are happening now, and there is no short supply of people on the internet or elsewhere, mainstream media, movies, people that we encounter, friends, family, relatives, whatever. Good evening, my friend, who are buying into that, or who are propagating fearful energies. And it's partially human nature, right? It is a byproduct of the third dimensional reality. But there are those who are benefiting, feeding off of that energy, off of the low vibrational, fearful thoughts. And the danger is, because we are co-creators, the thoughts that we entertain, that we feed our life force, our attention, they continue to grow, and we attract those into our experience. We manifest them into reality. And so when you're talking on the individual level, that's important. When you're talking on the wide scale collective consciousness, that becomes a force to be reckoned with. Very powerful indeed. This is why, if you look at mainstream media as an example, not just news, but let's use movies as an example. How many movies have you seen recently that show people growing, people evolving, embracing love and compassion and understanding for one another, and experiencing a robust spiritual awakening, embracing Christ consciousness and humanity rising to new heights? There's not too many of those movies out there, right? But comparatively, there's no short supply of the doom and gloom, of the end of the world movies, of horror and terror movies, of downright violence, and movies that attempt to normalize violence and hatred and contempt and absolute devastation, right? You have to consciously try to avoid that stuff, because it's absolutely everywhere. Thank you for that, my friend. I really appreciate that. Consider the creative potential of harnessing the collective consciousness in such a way. This is something that I've mentioned before whenever we were talking about other topics. You watched the Book of Eli last night. I love that movie. So what I mean is this. I just want to give a brief example of this. It is widely believed by quite a large number of people that predictive programming is a real thing. And what I mean by that, for anyone who is not familiar with that term, is there are hundreds of movies or TV shows, cartoons even, that mention things that happen, sometimes in great detail, years later. As an example of this, hello Noel, welcome in, my friend. One of the biggest examples of this is the 9/11 catastrophe that happened. There are hundreds of examples of predictive programming in movies or television shows, magazine ads, where it shows the Twin Towers being struck by an airplane. And there's the symbology of 9/11 all over the place. And people have developed that into this theory that they knew that this was going to happen, or they orchestrated it, and that they were telling the public this is what's going to happen. And all of the instances of that predictive programming is offered up as the evidence that they knew beforehand that this was going to happen, and that they were either rubbing it in our faces, or they were saying, look, we're going to do this, and now that we have told you we're going to do it, we are absolved of any karmic connection to those actions because you choose not to stop it. Hello, Brock. I have offered up an alternative theory to that. I'm not surprised, Roadkill. Guys, if the live is glitchy, I do apologize. I hope that it doesn't get too bad and you guys can bear with me there, because this is an important message. Okay. If anybody is having troubles with the live glitching, you might try leaving the live and rejoining. Sometimes that helps, but not always. So my theory on predictive programming is this. It is equally possible that what is going on is that there is a group of individuals or entities that are skilled in the ways of magic, and I do mean actual magic, not sleight of hand, which is simply the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will, using means not understood by traditional Western science. They understand that we create our realities by virtue of our thoughts, that consciousness is the organizing principle of the universe. It shapes the energy into matter. And they understand that they can harness the collective potential by putting an idea out there, out into the masses, such as the 9/11 events. And if they get enough people through use of symbology, which speaks again directly to the subconsciousness, to expect an event or fear an event is going to happen, if enough people feed those thoughts with our energy and breathe life into those thoughts, it begins to take on a life of its own, and that reality is made manifest. So on one hand, yes, they could be aware that these things are going to happen, or that they're orchestrating them, and that they're telling us beforehand. Conversely, it's also possible that they want those things to happen, and they're harnessing the creative potential of the collective by putting those thoughts and ideas out there convincingly enough, and then millions or billions of people accept those ideas and create that with their thoughts, and it manifests as reality. So the truth is, it's probably a combination of both of those things, which is why there's no short supply of end of the world, apocalyptic, doomsday scenario movies right now. Because, yes, Peter, yes, in my opinion, absolutely. We are at the end of the cycle right now, and we are standing collectively at the crossroads, and we are deciding which way we're going to go as individuals and as a collective. Are we going to recycle back through and work to relearn all these lessons again, or are we going to decide we're not going to be a part of the problem anymore and evolve to higher states of consciousness? So the internet, mainstream media, movies, books, television series, everything is chock full of examples right now of catastrophes, of the apocalypse, of the end of the world. There are just movies. There are hundreds of movies on those topics. And the reason why is because the cycle is ending no matter what, right? It is an inevitability. It's not something that can be stopped. The cycle is coming to a completion, and we are moving to the next cycle. But I believe that there are powers that be that want things to happen in a certain way. They want to steer the collective as much as possible using fear to manifest a reality that resembles a much darker scenario, one where large percentages of the population die, suffer through all sorts of heinous things, right? The truth is that does not have to be the reality. I think it's possible that those things happen. It's also possible that none of those things happen, and that we step out of those low vibrational energies associated with the third dimensional experience, and we embrace the higher path, the higher vibration, one of love and compassion and understanding, one of oneness and wholeness, understanding that all life is sacred and holy. And then all of those terrible things don't happen, right? The whole reason that I wanted to have this conversation with you guys tonight is because more than one of the members of our soul group has messaged me wanting my opinion on something that they've seen on TikTok or Instagram or whatever about some terrible event that's coming that somebody on social media is warning about. And just one of these examples I'm going to share with you is the 3 days of darkness. If you guys are on social media, you've probably heard this, that there are hundreds of people out there who are warning that someday soon, imminently, any moment now, the sun is going to go dark for 3 days. And it will be a period of time to where if you do not have your windows closed, if you don't have your windows covered, that you will be attacked by evil, dark entities and demons feasting on innocent souls during this time of darkness, and that the only way to protect yourself is by blacking out your lights so that no energy, no light, no anything can get through your windows. And a lot of people have bought into this and have accepted this as a reality, right? There are people who claim to be prophets who are saying this, who are warning people about this looming catastrophe of when the sun goes dark and somehow like the gates of hell are unleashed and all manner of evil entities are allowed to roam, to feast on everybody. I absolutely do not believe that. I believe that, if anything, that is a psyop that was put out there by said forces to control the collective consciousness, to get people to, it's a seed that is planted in the mind, right? And the seed has potential, but that is all. You can discard that seed, right? You don't have to plant that seed and water it and nurture it and watch it grow and bloom, because when you do that, the next thing you know, you've worked yourself up into such a state, you're so fearful, that is all consuming. You're not thinking about the day-to-day. You're not thinking about the general welfare and well-being of your loved ones or even yourself. You're so concerned that this is imminent, right? It is all consuming at that point. That's all you can think about once you downward spiral into this cycle of fear. Every thought is being emanated out into the universe like a magnet, and it is manifesting as our reality. That's why this is such an important topic, and why allowing things like that to take root in our mind are so dangerous. And this is also the same reason why I very carefully approach the topic of the end of the cycle, the polar reversal, all of that stuff, because it can be a fearful thing, right? Thank you for sharing that, Cher. I appreciate you. I'd love to hear those experiences sometime. And indeed, that happens quite frequently with near-death experiences, so you're not alone there. The truth of the matter is, whether you're talking about this 3 days of darkness, or whether you're talking about this asteroid Apophis in 2032, or you're talking about the Yellowstone supervolcano, or the polar reversal, or any of it. It doesn't matter how much evidence there is factually to support that. Those things are not our reality at the moment, right? Our reality is based here and now in the present moment. If you are experiencing fear, it is because you are projecting consciousness into the future. You cannot experience fear in the present moment. It's because you're living outside of the present moment that you experience fear. And again, you're manifesting. Oh, wow. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate that. Love it. You're manifesting those things as reality whenever that happens. So I don't think any of those things are set in stone. Even the pole flip, even the earth changes that have been prophesied by dozens of prophets. I think that those are potential timelines of an uncertain future. We have the ability to dictate which of those becomes our reality. And I don't just mean at the collective level. Individually, we have the ability to dictate what our future looks like by virtue of what we choose to focus on and how we tend to the garden of our mind. Which plants we allow to thrive, which ones we nurture, which ones we say, is that thought really of my own design? Or is that something that was planted there by something from outside of myself? Does that thought serve me? If it doesn't, pluck it out and stop nurturing it, right? And once we can begin to do those things, then we can meticulously dictate what our future realities look like at an individual level. I apologize for all the glitching, guys. Thank you for bearing with me. Hopefully it subsides. I want to share a story with you guys real quick. This is a short story. Most of you, if not all of you, have heard this story before, but I feel it has a very important bearing on this topic. In the Bible, during the ministry of Yeshua, of Jesus, the disciples were on the Sea of Galilee in a boat, and they're, out fishing, doing their thing, and Yeshua walks up to them on the water, just walks right up to him. And Peter is like, I believe it was Peter, was like, Lord, if that is truly you, stretch out your hand and then I will come to you. And he does so. And Peter steps out of the boat onto the water. No problem. He's walking on water. And then the wind picks up. And as the wind picks up, fear enters Peter's mind, and he plummets into the water. What's the moral of that story there? Oftentimes, even within hardcore conservative Christianity, such stories are taken as metaphors. I do not believe that story is a metaphor. I believe that Yeshua walked on water. I believe that was his reality. And he was trying to teach us and his disciples a very important lesson in that moment. Peter could walk on the water just as Yeshua. That was his reality until fear entered his mind. And then the moment fear entered his mind, he turned the channel. And then walking on water was no longer his reality. Sinking became his reality. And that is exactly the situation that I'm trying to explain right now with what's going on in the world around us. Sure, bad things are happening, right? If you watch the news, the whole world is geared up for World War III, right? The economy is tanking. There's this new smallpox. There's yada, yada, yada. There's all these terrible, fearful things, right? And that can be your reality if you tune your mind, your receiver, to that channel. You, conversely, can tune into a different channel, just like Peter did, and you can walk on the water. And I mean that literally as well, if you believe, right? I think that those things are possible. But I think that's the point of that entire story, is showing that whether you believe you can or cannot, that is the truth. Whether you believe or not that there are 3 days of darkness where all host of hell are unleashed on humanity, if you believe that is reality, it very well could become your reality because you are manifesting it, you are creating it. But you can turn that channel. You can turn off the TV, first of all. If you come across content that is switching your energy, that is pulling you out of your high vibration and lowering your vibration through fear, you can swipe, you can scroll. The moment that you feel that energy shift, that should get your attention that, hey, maybe this isn't for me, right? Controlling people through fear has been around for a very, very long time. Religion, for one, has harnessed that for a very long time. It doesn't mean that nothing bad will ever happen, right? That's not what I'm saying. But we can decide how we perceive a thing that's happening. Let me give an example of what I mean by that. For those of you that have followed me for a while, you know that I talk about the end of the cycle and the completion of the cycle and the beginning of the next cycle, the age of Aquarius. I talk about those things in relation to the earth changes and the polar reversal. Now, you could focus on that any number of ways. 2 main ways that you can see the earth changes and the end of the cycle is the doom and gloom. You could see major catastrophe, disaster, destruction, imminent loss of life. You could allow that to suck you into this downward spiral of fear, where you are pulled out of your power and out of your creative potential. Or you could see those things as a glorious event. And I know how that sounds, right? But bear with me. You could see these things as exciting because the old order, the old way of doing things, through control, through manipulation, through fear, slavery, destruction, violence, greed, all of those things are on their way out. And these earth changes are Mother Nature's way of clearing the slate to prepare the way for the age of Aquarius and the next golden age in 1,000 years of peace. That is something to be celebrated, to be looking forward to be meditating upon, to embrace that energy in our everyday life, right? So that's 2 very different ways of looking at things at the very same event. And I do believe whichever channel you're tuned into becomes your reality. That principle was illustrated in very powerfully in a Dolores Cannon book. And I can't remember exactly what the title of the book was. You'll have to forgive me. Maybe one of you guys who are more familiar can share that with everyone if you know. But there was an instance where Dolores Cannon was using her quantum hypnosis healing technique to regress an individual to a previous lifetime that was important and impactful to this current lifetime. And the individual began recalling a past life many years ago as a 16 or 17-year-old boy, if I remember right, who was living in Pompeii. And this individual was a little confused because there seemed to be two main factions in that area at that time that they had encountered. There was the people who said, you know, basically YOLO, do whatever you want, everything goes, let's go have fun, do all of the stuff, you know, the drinking, the debauchery, the whatever. And then there was the priestly caste who told this individual and many others that those things were sinful, that they were wrong, and that if you participated in any of that stuff, that you were going to be doomed to hell, and this terrible fiery place where you would go into this eternal lake of fire and all of these things. And so this boy was very confused and did not know what the truth was. And the volcano of Pompeii erupted, and all chaos erupted with it. You know, it was raining these giant stones and sulfur and the noxious fumes and the pyroclastic flows. This individual recalled in this past life trying to get to safety, and so they went to the sea for safety. And then they were overcome by poisonous gases and they perished. Dolores Cannon decided to have the individual stick with that experience for a time to see what would happen. And the individual experienced other people moving on, that light appeared and that they were called into the light. And when Dolores Cannon asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm not doing anything. I'm stuck here." And she said, "Stuck? What do you mean stuck?" And the individual basically said, "I'm not allowed to cross over because of this ideation of hell that I had accepted into my heart." They were self-imposing this purgatory of a terrible experience because they accepted it as reality when they were alive. And so they were manifesting that as a reality even after death. They were self-imposing this as the judge, jury, and executioner of that punishment that was imaginary. In reality, they were free to move on. They were free to cross over, to go towards the light, towards their loved ones, and to reset back into the reincarnation cycle. And in fact, later on they did. But that experience really powerfully illustrates the fact that what we believe is our reality is our reality. It's not just metaphorical or woo-woo. Literally what you believe is the reality for you. So, all the more reason why not to get sucked into these cycles of fear, such as the sky is falling, you know, the 3 days of darkness, or whatever it is. Any of those low vibrational cycles of fear has the ability to lower our vibration and our frequency and pull us out of creative potential and ultimately manifest those things as our reality. Kind of out of Seth Speaks. Wow. I couldn't move on because I thought my kids needed me, but I missed the point. They needed God. Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that, Cher. I appreciate that. I know that I'm throwing a lot out there, and that this is, although it's not a complicated topic, it is one that's hard to grasp because of human nature and the limitations of consciousness once we are embedded into third dimensional experience. It's hard to wrap our minds around a fifth dimensional concept in third dimensional experience, right? And that's truly what this is. The realization that science has found this out, by the way, through several different experiments, that if you're not observing the particle, it stops becoming a particle and it becomes a wave until it is observed again. What that means is our consciousness, the observer, is the organizing principle of energy into matter. Without consciousness, it's just energy. It's just vibration. We decide through our perception, through our consciousness, how that energy behaves and what it becomes through our experience. And whenever that's the tuning, turning the channel, right? On one hand, either you're walking on water or you're sinking. Both are true. Both are the reality for each person, right? That's what they were focused on. That's what they believed. That was the channel that their consciousness was tuned to. So that was their reality. If you don't mind, it don't matter. I think that there's a lot of truth to that. So, if any of you guys have seen any of this stuff, or even the things that I've talked about, because this is a topic I've really wrestled with, I hope that this conversation brings a little bit of ease and peace to your consciousness. We only lose our power when we relinquish it willingly, right? And buying into fear is that very thing. We are surrendering our power to another, to an entity, to a force, to whatever it is. And I think that another thing to really consider, another principle, is that I, for one, believe that not every thought that enters our mind, that we entertain, originates from within us. I believe that our brain, basically the hardware that runs the software, which is consciousness, has receivers, antenna all over the cortex of the brain, where it, excuse me guys, it picks up all sorts of things that aren't fully understood by science, the mechanisms, how it works. We pick up on vibrations of energies around us. We pick up on thoughts of other people. We pull things out of the ether. There's actually, there is a, I won't say prevalent, but a major theory within understanding of how consciousness works that says that's how memory is accessed. That memory is not actually stored in the brain, that it's actually stored out somewhere in the ethers, in the atmosphere around us, and that we retrieve that information to access it using those receptors. We have the capacity, right, to receive information from outside of us. That has been proven time and time again. And for that reason, I don't believe that every single thought that ever enters into the realm of our mindscape originates from within us. Sometimes we pick up on the thoughts of others. Sometimes thoughts are forced onto us through outside forces, whether that's through subliminal programming or through actual entities, I think both happen and are very real. And if we don't take the time, as the careful gardener of our mind, to consider that as a possibility, then there can be a tendency to accept blindly every thought that enters our mind as originating from self. And then what happens is we entertain it. We feed it our energy, our life force, and then it grows because we're nurturing it. But it doesn't have to be that way. We could say, okay, where did this come from? Trace it back to its origins. You could be tapping into other people's mental sphere. You could be experiencing a thought that they're wrestling with, or an emotion, especially if you have strongly developed empathetic abilities. Or you could have a thought that is originating from outside of you somewhere, that is forced, and you have received it. You don't have to accept that. You don't have to entertain it. Once you recognize it for what it is, you can pluck it out of your mind like a weed and discard it. You can set boundaries against those things as well, and then care for and nurture the healthy plants, the ones that are powerful, positive, affirmative, life-giving thoughts. You can nurture those, right, and watch them grow and blossom. So all of that to say, just because an authority or anybody else has said the sky is falling, or whatever it is, doesn't mean that that has to be our reality. We are co-creators. We alone decide what our reality looks like and what that becomes, through the way we perceive it and through carefully becoming the gardeners of our mind. And I think the perception part I only touched on a little bit, but I think that that is probably equally as important. An example is, and I learned this over a decade ago whenever I was wrestling with anxiety disorder. Biochemically, the body cannot tell the difference between being thrilled, between being excited, and being anxious or fearful. And I know that that sounds nonsensical, right? It sounds like there's no way that could be true, because we experience those emotions very differently in our body. But biochemically, it's identical. It's the same thing. You can imagine if you were to jump on a roller coaster, right? Depending upon your temperament, the thoughts that you're entertaining in your mind, that could be a very exciting, thrilling experience. It could be a blast. You could be one of the greatest times of your life. Or it could be a terrifying experience. You could white knuckle it the whole way. You could pass out. You could get so fearful that you vomit on yourself or others, right? It's the same experience. The exact same thing is happening. The exact same reality is true, right? A person is on a roller coaster, but there's two different levels of perception, the way that they are experiencing it. So that's something to consider as well, because you can shift your perception. If you get on something like a roller coaster, this is just an example I'm giving you, and you start feeling all of the emotions that are occurring as your body is dumping all of these chemical compounds. They're coursing through your veins, all of the adrenaline and stuff. And you can choose to perceive that as a thrilling, exciting experience versus being a very frightful, terrifying one. And that's a lot easier said than done, but it's as simple as shifting your perception, the way you're perceiving that experience. And ultimately, it changes the entire experience. Anyone who's been on a terrifying ride or whatever, something similar to that, you'll know what I mean. it might be the exact same thing that's happening, but it's a very different experience if you think you're going to die. It's the end of the world. The thing's going to go off the rails and you're going to be shot off into space at 200 miles an hour. If you're having all those fearful, terrifying thoughts, that experience is vastly different from somebody who's having the time of their life. Their hands are all up in the air. They're wailing and screaming with joy. It's thrilling. It's exciting. So consider those things, because everyone has the ability to shift their perspective, to see things differently. So what I'm trying to say here, to wrap all of this up, and then I'll stop talking for a little bit. We are at a period of time right now where the cycle is ending that has lasted for, in truth, 26,000 years. It is a major era of humanity and human experience that has been predominantly themed by control, fear, manipulation, dark themes, right? That's where we've seen slavery and mass genocide and all of these other terrible things that we don't need to get into right now. That cycle is ending and a new cycle is beginning. Things are happening now in our reality and will continue to happen for most likely the next couple of decades, leading up to the culmination of the old age and the beginning of the new age. Physical things like earth changes, like earthquakes, volcanoes increasing, all kinds of things are going to happen. There's going to be social unrest. The societal structures that have been in place for thousands of years don't want to relinquish power. The few ruling elite don't want to let go of that control, right? They enjoy it. And they're not going to let go willingly. So things are happening now and are going to happen in the future. It's all about how we perceive those things and what our beliefs are. If you believe it's the end of the world, the apocalypse, some terrible disaster and catastrophe, and we're all gonna die, that could become your reality. If you believe, on the other hand, that these are thrilling experiences that are ushering in the end of a major era of pain, misery, torment, and, rule through control and fear and all of that, and birthing the new experience of universal love and compassion and understanding through the law of one in Christ consciousness, the golden age, then that becomes your experience. That becomes your reality. And what's wild about this is the same thing that Dolores Cannon talked about. This is the same thing that Edgar Cayce talked about. It's the same thing that dozens of prophets have prophesied about. And I believe this is the very thing that mainstream conservative Christianity has misinterpreted as the rapture. There's a convergence of timelines going on right now, and collectively we stand at a crossroads. Everyone has a decision to make. Which path is going to be your reality? And we have to consciously make that choice by the thoughts that we choose to entertain, the way that we perceive events around us, and how we use the energy that we have been blessed with. Are we going to continue being part of the problem, following the path of self-destruction, or are we going to choose the path of evolution, of higher consciousness, of growth? Ultimately, I think that's what all of this boils down to. if sense wasn't common, would it be an emotion? So I'm actually glad that you mentioned emotion, because I want to talk about that before we end this for today. And share, I'm right there with you, my friend. The tables are turning. That's what's going on in the world around us right now. We're seeing it in real time. The truth is being revealed. The veil of illusion is falling. We have disclosure, right? We have people being ousted. These, I don't even want to mention it by name or topic, but things that have been reality, relegated to the shadows for hundreds or thousands of years, it's coming to light, and people are starting to see the true nature of this existence and what's been going on behind the scenes for the first time. Many, many different things are being brought to light right now, because the age of Aquarius is upon us, and the truth shall not remain hidden, right? It's being exposed to us right now. And that's where a lot of the social unrest and the revolutionary type energy is coming from, because everyone, whether they are consciously aware of this cycle ending or not, subconsciously is aware that these things are happening. I believe we all signed up for this, to be here now, not to just witness it, but to be active participants, to usher in this change, to be the change. That's why we signed up for this. So that's why we're all here, ultimately, in my opinion. On the topic of emotion, before I get too sidetracked, I know that this has been said before, and probably much more articulately than I'm going to share it with you guys, but it has a strong bearing on tonight's topic. Emotions are energy in motion. That's what an emotion is. It's energy in motion. So our emotions are there as a warning system to let us know how our energy is moving. And as simple as a concept as that is, it is very, very powerful. Whenever we set out on the path to become conscious creators, not just creating on autopilot the way the majority of the collective does, but to consciously decide what we want our future to look like and set out to manifest that consciously. Being able to keep a finger on the pulse of where our energy is paramount. You have to be able to do that, or else you are manifesting by default on autopilot. That's where the emotions come into play. That's where they're so powerful and so helpful. Because let's say you're maintaining a high vibration, and then you're scrolling around on TikTok or something, and you come across a feed where a guy claims to be a prophet, and he's like, 3 days of darkness, we're all going to be attacked by demons, and you're going to die unless you do what I say. The moment that thought enters your mind and you begin to entertain it, you begin to breathe life into it with your energy, your consciousness, you're going to experience a shift in your energy. And at first, until we really learn to get a handle and a feel for that energy, we might not be aware of that, because these things are operating behind the scenes subconsciously, right? But your emotions are there for a reason, as an early response, an early warning system to tell you, hey, pay attention, your energy's shifting, it's on the move, right? It's energy in motion. So whenever you experience an emotion such as fear or dread or whatever, that should be the red flag warning going off in your mind saying, hey, pay attention, your energy shifting, your vibration is lowering into this downward spiral, right? And so when we experience those emotions, pump the brakes and say, hang on a minute, what am I entertaining here? What am I breathing life into? What am I creating in this moment? What am I manifesting? If you're experiencing an emotion of fear, chances are it's not anything you really want to manifest, right? If, on the other hand, you experience that shift in energy to experiencing joy, bliss, pleasure, pay attention to that as well. Do more of those things, right? Because your energy is raising very, very powerfully. And so that's how the emotions can be very important significators of what's going on with our energy. And the more that we are aware of what's going on in our body, the more we can become aware of what our energy is doing, what our vibration is doing. Okay. I just got way behind on my comments, guys. Bear with me. I'm going to try to catch up with you. Emotions are expensive. They certainly can be, Gladys. Absolutely. Peace can be very disruptive to those who are not experiencing it. I'll say that, Cher. Been crying happy tears and sad tears. In my new reality, karma will hit faster. Okay, hang on a second, guys. I gotta prove I'm not a robot. It's always fear. What are your ions emoting? I like that. Definitely feel others' emotions. You're not alone in that, Missa. I do as well, and that was something that took me a very long time to realize. The important thing is realizing it, right? Because not everyone who experiences other people's emotions as their own are aware that they're doing that. I did so for decades and wasn't aware of it. So the first step is acknowledging it, being aware of that. And then once you are aware that that energy, that emotion is not from yourself, then you can separate yourself from it, and you can begin to set boundaries in place to protect yourself, so that you're not wide open to whatever just coming into your own energetic field. That is a very important faculty. Whenever I talk about empathy, empaths are here for a very important reason, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I believe that empaths are here to help heal the world. That we are meant to, once we achieve a level of self-mastery and have the ability to heal ourselves and set appropriate boundaries, we are here to take certain energies upon ourselves and transmute them to help heal the collective. That's one of the faculties of empathy, I think, probably the highest. But would you know that you're not a robot? That's an interesting question, my friend. My question is, if you have consciousness, true consciousness, would it matter what the host is? Because at this point in my journey, I believe that this is not me. This is my vehicle. It is the temple that houses the spirit. And there are many different vehicles. There are many different types of temples, right? But ultimately, there is one spirit. There's one source of that consciousness. And that is what has been called God, ultimately. So I don't think that I am my body, and I don't think that I am my mind either. I think that I am the consciousness, the observer that inhabits the body like a vehicle that transports me around through the environment and everything. So if that is reality, would it matter if I was actually a robot as long as I had that consciousness? I honestly don't know that it would. I think that it's just a different type of vehicle, which brings up a very interesting topic on artificial intelligence and consciousness. Unfortunately, I don't have time to have that conversation tonight, but I do think it's a really interesting topic. I know when someone is sick with cancer. I really think that at a core level that what cancer is a state of incoherence between consciousness and the body, that it is exacerbated by trapped energy in the form of emotions that have not been expressed, that have not been healed, that have not been externalized from the body, and that those things become traps. They become blockages within the energetic field that is constantly regenerating the body through consciousness. That every single cell in our body has the capacity to become any other cell in the body, such as a stem cell. It contains everything that is in the entire body. So that stem cell can become a liver cell or a neuron or a skin cell or a muscle cell, whatever is needed. Consciousness is what tells that cell what to become. And if those channels of communication become impeded by pent-up, repressed emotions or something similar to that, then you enter into a state of incoherence to where there is not an open channel of communication, and it can become things like cancer, essentially dis-ease. That's where that state of being comes from. I think there's a misconception about karma. Karma is what we are here to do, our life plan. That's interesting. I have a different view of karma than what the popular conception of karma is. I don't think that it is a system of punishment and reward. That everything that exists is energy. The universe must have balance. And that is excuse me guys, that is an unviable law. It cannot be violated, right? So the universe must maintain balance, and it's basically a balance of an energetic equation. So if you go too far off this way, then a response is necessitated to bring things back into balance, to balance that energetic equation. And so karma is not a punishment or a reward. It is a system of maintaining that energetic equilibrium or balance, in my opinion. That's the way that I conceive of it. And I see what you're saying about that being part of our life plan, our life path, our soul's mission. And first of all, I believe that our soul is a spark of divine consciousness, and as such it contains the essence of the whole. Just like if you were to take a drop out of the ocean, it is a single individual drop, but it contains the essence of the ocean as well. And as such, I believe that our soul, our highest self, is in constant contact with the divine. So all-seeing, all-knowing, it can see infinite possibilities of all timelines, and knows what needs to happen in order for soul growth, for development, for you to ultimately fulfill your mission. And karma factors into that, right? So I do think that those energetic rebalancings that happen are a part of the plan that we've signed up for. Brock, I like that idea, my friend. Let me get to the end of my comments real quick, and then we will end with a collective meditation for anybody who would like to participate in that. Talking about the 10 Commandments creation for karmic release through lifetimes. Oh, okay, I got you. Law of compensation. Bear with me, guys. I'm almost caught up with you. Okay. All right, everybody. So it's reached that time tonight where I need to go ahead and end this live for now. And for anybody who does not know, I will be live Saturday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for the regular Soul Group Live. And I hope that I'll get to see you guys again then. But I'm going to hold a meditation, a collective meditation for any and everyone who would like to participate in that. And I'm going to set the intention that this energy be guided towards raising the vibration of the collective, and that impacts at the individual level as well as the collective level. And I invite each and every one of you guys to participate in that. All right, everybody, give me just 1 second here. Okay. So before I begin, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for sharing this time and space with me, for giving me the gift of this platform that is truly a blessing in my life, to be able to come before you guys and share my truth with the world. So thank you so much for giving me that gift. And I love each and every one of you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for those of you who are still here. That was an absolutely beautiful experience. Thank you for that recommendation. I really enjoyed that. Again, thank you all for sharing this time and space with me. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I hope that the rest of your days are filled with absolute blessings. And hopefully we'll see each other again this Saturday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Love you guys. Have a good night.